How the Al-Assad family came to dominate Syria for 50 years. Many countries have monarchies that have been around for many years, such as the British royal family with the United Kingdom and the royal family of Dubai. However, no one really asks how these families came to be or how they all became such a dominating force in their countries. The same can be said for the country, Syria, and the royal family that has dominated it for many decades. This leads us to the question, how did the Syrian royal family dominate this country so many years ago? Well, sit back and relax as we uncover a very interesting part of history that you probably never saw coming. The Assad family, Syria, or the Syrian Arab Republic as it is officially called, is a country in the western part of Asia that has probably never piqued a lot of people's interest. That is, until the leader of the country was recently named as the #1 most corrupt leader in the world. That is a title that most people would try to avoid by all means, as excelling in this department is a horrible reputation to have. Thanks to this, everyone developed an interest in the Syrian leader and his family, especially how they came to rule the country for over 50 years. The Assad family didn't always rule the country of Syria. This family originated from Ali Sulaiman al-Wash, the grandfather of Bashar al-Assad, who was born in 1875 and resided in the Kandahar village in the coastal Syrian mountains. The locals there apparently gave him the nickname Wash, which was Arabic for wild beast, as he was pretty strong and a relatively good fighter. Suleiman's reputation went even higher when he fought off invaders from the Ottoman governor who came to his village to forcefully collect taxes and recruits at the beginning of the First World War. Since then, Suleiman became a local mediator for quarreling families in the village, as well as one of the local chieftains who ruled over the area. He had 3 wives throughout his life and 11 children, of which Hafez al-Assad was his 4th, but we will get back to him later in this video. Suleiman lived until he was 88 and old enough to see his son rise to power. As for the family name, it used to be al-Wash until the year 1920, when it was changed to Al-Assad. The Assad family is part of a syncretic sect called the Alawite sect, and ever since they rose to power, they have used the sectarian loyalty from the Alawite sect as an important component to make their dynastic rule a lot more legit. As a result, many loyalists have been given major positions in the bureaucracy, security forces, military, judiciary, and other departments, so as to strengthen the Assad family's powerful hold on the country. This sect started gaining power in the 1950s thanks to the Syrian armed forces and the Ba'ath Party, with military officers from the Alawite sect like Salah Jadid. Factions from the Ba'ath Party staged a number of military coups in the 1960s, ultimately turning the country into a one-party state. This was a major step in their journey to dominating the entire country of Syria. However, it wasn't in the name of the Assad family just yet. Hafez al-Assad. Hafez al-Assad was already a part of the Ba'ath Party at this point and had been working on making an impact to cement his name in the political world, especially since he wasn't satisfied with just his military achievements and his professional military career at the Air Force. Upon joining the Syrian regional branch of the party, Hafez was made a member of the military committee and given one job: to strengthen the party's position in military establishments, or, in simpler terms, make the country's military a Ba'ath monopoly. To do this, Hafez recruited Zaki al-Arsuzi, and the two toured military camps preaching the Ba'ath gospel and appointing loyal officers to major positions, all while ensuring that the political education of the troops was not abandoned. With time, Hafez became the commander of the Air Force, appointing his confidants to senior and sensitive positions and preparing himself for the power struggles that lay ahead. He was a key participant in the Syrian coup d'etat that happened in 1963, which brought the Syrian regional branch of the Arab Socialist Ba'ath Party to power within the country, and lasted long after he had passed on. In 1966, Hafez participated in a second coup, which was carried out to displace the traditional leaders of the Ba'ath Party and ultimately ended with Hafez being appointed as defense minister by the new government. His rise to power was going smoothly, as he now had a solid footing in the political world. But it still wasn't enough for him. He wanted it all. The entire country was his for the taking, and in 1970, he led the coup that got him the whole country at the expense of its previous leader, Salah Jadid. At this point, he was the prime minister of the country, and by the year 1971, he became the 18th president of Syria. Following his rise to power, Hafez had to put in a number of strong moves to make sure that what happened to his predecessor wouldn't happen to him. Firstly, he created a Stalinist-style cult of personality around him, which basically worshipped him and even depicted him as the father figure of the Syrian nation. He went as far as putting monuments, pictures, statues, symbols and billboards of himself in every nook and cranny of Syrian society, all of which were designed to solidify the notion of Assad's Syria. This cult of personality was even extended to his successor, and these state propaganda efforts were seen as a strategy to secure the compliance of the common folk while identifying the country of Syria with the Assad dynasty. The Syrian government went from being a one-party system in the normal sense of the word to becoming a one-party dictatorship with a strong presidency and a cult of personality solely focused on Hafez, and his family was made by the president and the Ba'ath Party. Hafez also wanted to strengthen Syria's foreign relations with countries that his predecessor had considered reactionary. As a result, he sided with the Eastern Bloc and the Soviet Union during the Cold War in return for support against Israel, and he wanted to paint Syria as the defender of the Palestinians against Israel, even though he had given up on the pan-Arab concept of unifying the Arab world into one Arab nation. Succession of Syria. Once Syria had been remolded into the Assad dynasty, Hafez moved on to the next line of action, picking a successor. Like a normal political government, it is expected that some form of election would be held, but Hafez wasn't interested in all that long process. Instead, he wanted to turn the Syrian government into his family's birthright, which meant that he was hoping to put his family members in power. However, his first choice was his brother Rifa'at Ali Al-Assad, who was nicknamed the Butcher of Hama, as he was the commanding officer of the ground operations of the Hama massacre, which took place in 1982, per the orders of his brother, the president. But, just like how Hafez had participated in many coups to rout out previous rulers, he was about to be routed out in a coup just like that. When Hafez suffered from heart problems in late 1983, he created a 6-man committee to rule in his stead. However, this committee didn't include his brother or any member of the Alawite sect. This caused unease amongst the sect members, and several high-ranking officers began rallying around Rifa'at. As a result, his brother, Rifa'at, led his troops in March 1984 to take control of the government. But unfortunately for him, Hafez returned within a few months and assumed full control. With that, Rifa'at was put on trial, but Hafez's first daughter convinced her father that killing him would bring disgrace to the Assad family while causing problems with the second most influential family in the country and Rifa'at's in-laws, the Makhlouf family. As a result, a compromise was reached in which Rifa'at was made vice president with responsibility for security affairs, but this proved to be a pretty insignificant post. He was later sent to the Soviet Union for an open-ended working visit, which marked the beginning of his exile, while his closest supporters and those who were unable to prove their loyalty to Hafez were expelled from the army and Ba'ath Party in the following years. Hafez's second choice for a successor was his first son, Bashar al-Assad. However, that didn't go as planned as, in 1994, he lost his life in a car crash in the early hours of the morning while driving at 150 miles per hour through fog on his way to Damascus International Airport, along with his friend Hafez Makhlouf, who was hospitalized with injuries, and his chauffeur, who sat in the back seat and was unhurt. This left Hafez with his third choice, his second son, Bashar al-Assad, who was undergoing his postgraduate education in ophthalmology in London. Bashar al-Assad. After his elder brother Bashar's death, Bashar was recalled to Syria by his father to take over his elder brother's role as his heir apparent, assuming the mantle of president-in-waiting. State propaganda began working on Bashar's image, and they soon began elevating his public image as the hope of the masses, while preparing the public for a continuation of the rule of the Assad dynasty. Hafez spent the remaining 6 years of his reign preparing Bashar for his rule, which was made on 3 levels. First, support was built up for Bashar in the military and security apparatus by enrolling him in the military academy and propelling him through the ranks, so he quickly became a colonel of the elite Syrian Republican Guard in January 1999. Old divisional commanders were forced into retirement, while new young Alawite officers with loyalties to Bashar took their place in order to establish a power base for the heir apparent in the military. Second, Bashar's image was established with the public as he became head of the bureau to receive appeals and complaints from citizens and led a campaign against corruption. Thanks to this campaign, many of his potential rivals for president were put on trial for corruption, all schemes to solidify his standing. Bashar also became the president of the Syrian Computer Society and assisted with introducing the internet in Syria, which improved his image as a modernizer and reformer. Lastly, Bashar was familiarized with the mechanisms of running the country, as he learned specifically at the feet of his father. Loyalists in the Ba'ath Party, military, and the Alawite sect were supportive of Bashar's ascension, enabling him to become his father's successor. On July 17, 2000, Bashar became president after his father passed away on June 10, 2000. Bashar's regime was a highly personalist dictatorship, with all the power in his hands as he governed Syria as a totalitarian police state. His tenure was marked by several human rights abuses, war crimes, and severe repression. However, even though he inherited the power structures and personality cult developed by his father, he lacked the necessary loyalty and faced rising discontent against his rule. As a result, a lot of people from his father's regime resigned or were forced out, with the political inner circle being replaced by loyalists from Alawite clans. Bashar's early economic liberalization plans worsened inequalities, and he was responsible for one of the most repressive regimes in modern times. His lethal crackdown on Arab Spring protesters during the Syrian Revolution sparked the Syrian civil war in 2011, which resulted in the Assad regime's collapse in 2024, with over 580,000 deaths, of which at least 306,000 were civilians, and over 90% were caused by pro-Assad forces. The United States, the European Union, and the majority of Arab League members pushed for Bashar to quit in 2011, but he refused, and the war continued. During the Syrian civil war, the Assad dynasty committed multiple war crimes, and its army was accused of carrying out several chemical weapons strikes. In November 2024, an alliance of Syrian rebels launched multiple assaults with the aim of overthrowing Bashar and the Assad dynasty. Bashar escaped to Moscow on the morning of December 8th, as rebel troops first reached Damascus, and the Russian government offered him political asylum. Later that day, rebel troops took control of Damascus, and the Assad dynasty came crashing down. As of January 2nd, 2025, there are unconfirmed stories that Bashar may have been poisoned while in Russia, but regardless, the Assad dynasty that came to power over 50 years ago has ultimately reached its horrible end. What do you think about the Assad dynasty and the state of Syria during their rule? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let us know what you think about this troublesome regime. Trust me, there are more stories on royals than we can cover in one video, so make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon for more juicy royal news.